Have you ever noticed how some people seem to move through life almost apologetically, as if they're sorry for just existing? They're the ones who say sorry when someone else bumps into them on the street. They're the ones who shrink a little when they speak, their voice soft, as if they're trying to take up less space in the world than they deserve. And if you really, truly listen to them, not just to their words, but to the hesitations, the pauses between them, you might just hear it. That small, almost invisible echo of a childhood that didn't quite feel like love. You see, not being loved as a child doesn't always look like the dramatic, traumatic stories we see in movies. It isn't always about obvious cruelty or outright neglect. Sometimes it's a much quieter, more insidious thing. Sometimes it's the deafening silence in a home that should have been filled with laughter. Sometimes it's a mother who was physically present but emotionally distant, too buried in her own struggles to offer a comforting hug. Or a father who was a good provider but was too tired, too stressed, or just didn't know how to connect on an emotional level. It can be a home that was perfectly safe, warm, and well kept, but emotionally cold, a place where needs were met, but the soul was left hungry. This lack of emotional nourishment in childhood carves deep, often invisible, channels into the adult we become. It becomes the blueprint for our relationships, our self-worth, and how we navigate the world. One of the most profound effects is the development of an anxious attachment style. When a child's cries for comfort are consistently ignored or met with irritation, they learn a devastating lesson. My needs are a burden. I am too much. As an adult, this translates into a constant, gnawing fear of abandonment. They might become the people pleaser, bending over backwards to make everyone happy, convinced that their worth is tied to their usefulness. They'll say yes when they mean no, sacrifice their own needs, and exhaust themselves trying to earn the love they never felt they were freely given. The anxiety whispers that if they stop giving, if they show a moment of imperfection, they'll be left alone. Then there's the other side of the coin, the avoidant attachment style. This is the child who learned that showing vulnerability only leads to disappointment or rejection, so they stopped showing it. They learned to self-soothe, to become fiercely independent, to build a fortress around their heart. As adults, they often appear strong, self-reliant, and composed. They might be successful, driven, and admired from a distance. But up close, intimacy feels threatening. True emotional closeness feels like a trap. They'll keep partners at arm's length, create distance when things get too serious, and rationalize it as needing space or not being the relationship type. In reality, they're terrified. They're terrified that if they let someone in, they'll only be let down again, confirming that deep-seated belief that they are ultimately on their own. And what about self-worth? A child's sense of value is a mirror reflecting the love and validation they see in their parents' eyes. When that reflection is cloudy, critical, or absent, the child internalizes a profound sense of being flawed or unworthy. They grow into adults who are relentlessly pursued by an inner critic. This is the voice that magnifies every mistake, dismisses every accomplishment, and constantly compares them unfavorably to others. They might achieve great things, but they never feel successful. They're surrounded by friends, but they feel fundamentally unlovable. They receive a compliment and their first thought is, they're just being nice, or if they really knew me, they wouldn't say that. This deep-seated feeling of not enoughness is a heavy burden to carry through life, coloring every experience and sabotaging potential joy. This internal landscape often leads to difficulties in forming and maintaining healthy relationships. How can you accept genuine love from someone else when you don't believe you deserve it? When a kind, stable partner shows them consistent affection, it can feel confusing, even suspicious. They might unconsciously recreate the dynamics of their childhood, being drawn to partners who are emotionally unavailable, critical, or unpredictable. It is a tragic paradox. The familiar chaos of an unhealthy relationship feels more normal than the calm stability of a loving one. They might push good people away or tolerate poor treatment because, on some subconscious level, it confirms their belief about what they deserve. Breaking this pattern requires immense self-awareness and the courage to choose the unfamiliar path of a healthy, reciprocal connection. Furthermore, the chronic stress of an unloving childhood can have tangible effects on our nervous system. A child in an emotionally cold or unpredictable environment is in a constant state of low-grade alert, or fight, flight, or freeze. Their system is flooded with stress hormones. As an adult, this can manifest as chronic anxiety, difficulty relaxing, being easily startled, or feeling a constant humming sense of unease they can't quite name. They might struggle with decision-making, plagued by a fear of making the wrong choice and facing disapproval. This is the legacy of a childhood spent walking on eggshells, trying to anticipate the mood of a parent and avoid triggering their displeasure. The world, for them, doesn't feel like a safe place. It feels like a minefield of potential threats and judgments. So, what can be done? If this story resonates with you, please know that your past does not have to be your future. The journey of healing is not about blaming your parents. It's often about understanding that they were likely carrying their own unhealed wounds. Healing is about reparenting yourself. It's about learning to give yourself the things you never received. It starts with validation. Acknowledging your pain is the first, most crucial step. Your feelings are valid. The sadness, the anger, the emptiness, it's all real. You are not being dramatic or living in the past. You are acknowledging a fundamental wound that deserves to be seen and cared for. This validation can come from journaling, from opening up to a trusted friend, or most powerfully, from working with a therapist who can provide a safe space to explore these experiences without judgment. Next comes the practice of self-compassion. This means learning to speak to yourself with the kindness you would offer a dear friend. When the inner critic rears its head, you can learn to notice it and then gently counter it. You can tell yourself it's okay to make mistakes. I am still worthy of love and respect. It's about celebrating small victories, forgiving yourself for your perceived shortcomings, and learning to sit with uncomfortable emotions without judging yourself for having them. Self-compassion is a practice, not a perfect science. It's about choosing kindness over and over again. Building a secure sense of self is also key. This involves discovering who you are outside of your relationships and your drive to please others. What do you genuinely enjoy? What are your values? What makes you feel alive? It's pursuing hobbies, exploring your creativity, setting and achieving small, personal goals. These are all ways to build an internal foundation of self-worth that is undependent on external validation. You are building a home inside yourself, one that is safe, warm, and loving. And finally, it's about learning what healthy love looks like. It's observing healthy relationships in others. It's reading books. It's understanding the concepts of boundaries, mutual respect, and emotional reciprocity. It's learning to set boundaries for yourself, saying no when you need to, and understanding that doing so doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a person who respects themselves. It's about taking a chance on people who are kind, consistent, and emotionally available, even if it feels scary at first. The wounds of childhood can run deep, but they are not a life sentence. You are not broken. You are a survivor who learned to adapt to a difficult environment. Now, as an adult, you have the power to create a new environment for yourself, one filled with the compassion, validation, and unconditional love you have always deserved. The path isn't easy, but it is a journey toward wholeness, and it is the most worthwhile journey you will ever take. If any of this has touched a part of you, please be gentle with yourself today. And if you're struggling, remember that reaching out for help is a sign of incredible strength. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. If this video was helpful, please consider liking it and subscribing for more content on healing and personal growth. Take care.